He's saying, don't collateralize your Bitcoin for a mortgage. I mean, what do you say to that? What do you think?
Well, first off, I'd like to say I have the utmost respect, and I've read a couple of his books, and I'm actually a fan. But we do disagree on this point, and I think that's a misunderstanding. And I know he knows this, so I just don't know. I just don't know why he hasn't connected it. I think money and currency need to be understood as two different tools, right? Like money is not currency, and currency is not money. When gold backed the system, and it was the collateral asset that backed those circulating liabilities, the paper was the currency. It was the medium of exchange. It was what increased velocity of the money, but the money was still the asset that sat in the bank that was the collateral. So money is a tool and currency is a tool. And we're in a unique position as Bitcoiners where we have accumulated what happens to be the best form of money the world has ever seen, and therefore the most pristine form of collateral the world has ever seen. So you can use money and currency together like you would in a garden. If you have a shovel and you have a rake, they're two different tools to complete two different objectives. And what we have is, with Bitcoin as money, you have pristine collateral. Why? Because unlike a cash equivalent, over the life of the loan, the money is actually engineered to appreciate in value. So with a 5-year compounding annual growth rate of 60% and a 10-year compounding annual growth rate of over 80%, in the long run, Bitcoin is actually an auto deleveraging collateral. You could literally post Bitcoin as collateral, and as long as you eliminate price volatility liquidation risk, over the long period of time, the burden of your fiat denominated debt held against that pristine collateral will disappear, because Bitcoin will 10x in 5 years. So if you post $500,000 and you take $500,000 and buy your house, in 5 years, if Bitcoin maintains its CAGR, your $500,000 of collateral will now be worth $5 million. So 500,000 versus 500,000 to start at 1-to-1 versus 1/10 after just a 5-year period. What does that do? I hate making this comparison, but responsible savers of Bitcoin are going to be the new Cantillionaires. We are printing purchasing power through the engineered design of our unit of account, and that's our money. And therefore, if we want to spend that money, if we want to unlock the purchasing power of that money without giving up ownership, you must use it as collateral. He said spend and replace. I think that works at the top of the S curve. I think that works when the ongoing transfer of wealth accelerates and then completes, and now we're at the top of the S curve, and the purchasing power of Bitcoin is more correlated to the global economy. So the purchasing power of Bitcoin can slightly increase with global economic growth and slightly decrease with contraction, but you're not on the precipice of one of the largest transfers of wealth that we've ever seen in human history. So for that reason, at this point in time, it makes sense to use money as a collateral. And when you want to increase your quality of life and standard of living, you borrow currency. So you have deflationary money acting as your collateral. You're borrowing inflationary currency. That fixed fiat denominated debt becomes an asset instead of a liability, because it's not backed by your time and energy. It's not backed by proof of promise, by credit, by circulating credit. It's a commodity credit. It's backed by the most pristine form of collateral in the world, 24/7, 365 liquid, 10-minute settlement times with transaction finality. No other asset is compared to Bitcoin as collateral. And therefore, as we move through the financialization of the asset class, I think it's going to become very common and evident for people to be using Bitcoin as collateral. One caveat, though, because the answer to the question, is it smart to borrow against your Bitcoin? The answer is actually yes and no. The answer is yes, because you can unlock your purchasing power without giving up ownership. But the answer is no, because depending on who your counterparty is, you could lose your Bitcoin. I love to point to the COVID example. If you were borrowing from a traditional lender through COVID, and price goes from 10,000 down to 5,000, you're getting margin calls. If you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to sleep on this tonight, or you know what, I'm going to put a little bit more out there to protect another 10 or 20%. And then overnight it goes from 5 to below 3,500. You've now just lost all the collateral you've posted. Right. And it's not even your fault. It's just a global event that nobody could control. It's a liquidity event. And now it's gone. So in that case scenario, no, it's not worth it. But I think as the market matures and we go into V2, V1 being BlockFi and Celsius and FTX and all of the rehypothecation schemes we saw when fiat maxis came in here and tried to recreate the fiat system in the digital economy with absolute digital scarcity. You can't print Bitcoin. Didn't work. But as we mature the products, and we have products like we see at People's Reserve, where we've removed liquidation risk, where we incorporate adjustable interest rates. You go back to that same scenario, the price goes from 10 to 5, your interest rate goes up a little bit. It goes from 5 to below 35, your interest rate goes up a little bit. So for a couple months, you pay a higher payment. And then when Bitcoin bounces back up to 10,000, you're right back to where you started. Then when Bitcoin goes and puts new all-time highs, your interest rate is further decreasing, making their debt more affordable over the life of the home. So to me, I mean, yes and no, but choose your counterparty wisely. Make sure you, Bitcoiner, are being respected as somebody who's been a responsible saver of the most pristine form of collateral in the world.